Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all doing today? Welcome to another edition of the Political Idiots. My name is Donald Cole, and I am joined once again by Carl. Carl, how are you doing?
We're doing fine today. It's a great day to be here, and we're looking forward to this topic.
Well, it's not such a fun topic today. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about something that just simply baffles me. I don't understand it, and that is the recent riot at UC Berkeley. If you are unaware, this past week, Milo Yiannopoulos was supposed to give a speech at UC Berkeley. He was hosted by college Republicans and by the college itself. However, before he could speak, according to reports, about 100 people in masks showed up and started a riot. They set fire to a generator, smashed windows and ATMs, and beat people with what in the video looks like broomstick handles. And they did this to anybody who even remotely looked like they were a supporter of Trump or Milo Yiannopoulos. And I say even remotely looked like it because in one particular video, a woman was wearing a red hat that said, "Make Bitcoins great again." And people thought it said, "Make America great again," which has been Donald Trump's slogan since the very beginning. That woman that was wearing "Make Bitcoins Great Again" hat was sprayed in the face point blank with pepper spray by an older gentleman who I just for no reason. She was just standing there on camera just talking to somebody else, and the guy walks up and sprays her in the face. Things got so violent that the event was canceled because police doing security at the event could not guarantee the safety of Milo or anyone else. In a separate incident, a white supremacist was being interviewed live on television, and someone off camera walked up and cold-cocked him in the face. Now, I can understand the anger that these people incite. Self-proclaimed racists are some of the most vile people on this earth. Milo is a known antagonist, having gotten banned from Twitter for some of his more harassing tweets to Leslie Jones, an African-American woman. He is a known baiter. It's his job to get attention for being antagonistic. But does this mean we cheer when they get physically assaulted, or we cheer when they are not allowed to speak their opinions? There have been reporters and Hollywood actors and actresses who have tweeted and been happy that these events have not been allowed to happen. Really, I couldn't agree less. Truly, I believe that we can only be a free society if everyone is allowed to speak their opinion. Allowing them to exist and be spoken, even though we find it disgusting. Thoughts can be said by someone else. That means I am secure in my rights to speak freely as well. Once you start limiting free speech because you do not like what someone else says, then free speech itself is not a sure thing. MLK taught us an important lesson. Peaceful protest in the face of oppression is the surest way to effect change. If you do not like what Milo or any of his people say, just ignore them. Do not let them get a rise out of you. Milo makes his living out of instigating passionate responses by getting clicks on web pages. The only way you make Milo and people like him disappear is to not give him any attention. Don't click on any stories with his name in it. Don't pay him any attention at all, and he will simply go away. If for no other reason, then he will have no money, and therefore will have no platform from which to speak. And I cannot stress this enough. Under no circumstance is it okay to be violent with someone who says something that you do not like. Carl, what say you?
Well, Don, I think it's just to start off. Obviously, the events at UC Berkeley this last week, during the week of the 30th of January, was definitely something to be condemned. I never support the idea of riots. I don't support the idea of violence when we're dealing with free speech. I also don't think that Milo should be banned necessarily from things. Now, some would argue that some of his speeches are hate speech, if you will. But we get a little bit into this realm of political correctness, which I just don't think we need to focus on as much. We're almost too down the rabbit hole. We say something wrong, and then we did it. Oh no, I'm sorry, we dressed up in the wrong thing and not pretty. But my point here is that you just have to let it go. Sometimes it's a joke, sometimes it's in an area, sometimes it's what people believe. They may not be correct, and if they're not mainstream to you, then that's good, but they still have the right to be able to say what's going on. One of the things, though, that I would say, you had mentioned the idea of Hollywood actors or people on the left saying, they were happy that this happened as far as him being canceled. I don't think they were saying it in context of the riots. Some might have been, but probably the vast majority were not. That in its own self, if you say that shouldn't be allowed, then we're contradicting ourselves as to how we're going through this. Ultimately, they have a right to be happy. Ultimately, the people that try to protest and get things shut down or say another thing or another perspective have those rights to do that. And that's kind of where we get into this interesting, era. But I do believe that you're correct that Milo and everybody else, they are antagonists. That's what they try to do. And actually, what's funny is that the liberals and the folks that are, I would even consider that are more ideologically centered towards my particular area, need to learn that that's what happens. That's what they want. And what's funny in more situations than not, in this situation that happened at UC Berkeley, Milo's probably very happy that he didn't have to speak. I'm sure he wanted to speak. I'm sure he wanted to see people, but he's not unhappy and upset that his thing got canceled because of riots. It speaks to his point that he's trying to make. And I think that sometimes is what we don't think about is the overall context of things. It's not saying that people can't protest or be outside peacefully and say what he's saying is wrong. That's definitely possible. But it's that other spectrum that becomes very much a difference.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say that people have a right to feel the way they want to feel. I would simply caution people from being excited or jubilant that someone who doesn't have their same opinions had their event canceled because of riots.
One of the things that's there is that when you look at the overall perspective at this particular event, you have individuals that were happy that his type of speech, his type of ideas were not necessarily shared. But what's even more kind of comical about that from some of the folks that are at UC Berkeley is that UC Berkeley is known as being one of the premier liberal arts schools. So they should be welcoming the idea of multiple different ideas of liberal arts. And we're not talking about liberal as in the idea of liberal conservatism. We're talking about liberal as in the idea of what the arts and communication and how things are working and what's going on. That requires different sides of political spectrum, different sides of journalistic, different sides of discourse. And that's something that's interesting.
To UC Berkeley's credit, they did denounce the riots and they did come out with a statement saying that they did not support, that they were trying to have this speech for no other reason than because it was a different point of view that they were trying to host. They specifically wanted Milo Yiannopoulos as a different point of view, and they didn't support the riots because of the very thing you said, because they are a very liberal arts center where people can speak different points of view freely.
It's important to note because, everyone watches our own bubble, right? You watch the different cable news networks. They're going to tell you the facts to a certain degree, but they're going to tell you it through those lenses. So when I was watching coverage on MSNBC, it was, this happened, it stopped, the riots were here, a little bit of violence, this and that. But Berkeley definitely wanted, had approved it. The college was here. You watch Fox News coverage, on a lot of it became all of a sudden this, we got riots in the streets everywhere in the college. See, why is UC Berkeley not allowing this type? Why did they cancel the event? No, there's a difference there. Settle it down, okay? It's somewhere in the middle of the aisle. 1, UC Berkeley wanted them there. 2, college Republicans wanted them there. 3, they wanted it there for the difference of opinions. 4, rioting happened. Bad. All right, that's where we're at in this particular situation. Those aisles of two sides make things more challenging. One of the other things that I did want to mention, I know you had talked about this segment being this idea about violence and actions at protests that are unbecoming. And one of the interesting stories that I think comes out of it is all too often people get excited, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they go too far. There are instances that go into the idea, like if we think about the just this last week, Austin, Texas hosted at its capital. It's a biannual Muslim to the Capital Day, where students of Muslim faith and Islamic faith come to the Texas Capitol to see United States students and citizens come to see how government is working, and it's a civics day for them. 2 years ago when it was hosted, there were protesters out there protesting 15, 16-year-old men and women, about how their religion is horrible. We can have our own debate about what religion is good, bad, or indifferent, but these are kids. And ultimately, we had one protester out there that took the microphone away from the person who was speaking about thanking the governor and the government from being there to go out there and to proclaim the idea that Christianity was the one true religion. That's the stuff to me that you can say it, but don't interrupt somebody else's right to say it. Don't infringe on other people's rights. And that's what happened here at the riots. And that's why what you're talking about becomes challenged when we look at it.
I would agree. It's the one thing I will say is that people are very passionate, and I understand being very passionate about something. People have to remember that they can't go so far as to stop other people from speaking. Now you're infringing on their rights to speech. And as far as protesting 15 and 16-year-olds, that just seems stupid to me. I don't understand why you do that. If you were protesting and it just happened to be on that day, so be it. But if you're actually there specifically protesting 15 and 16-year-olds, it's stupid. Why would you do that?
They were there that day solely to the idea. It was 2 years ago. It was in 2015. And they were there protesting the visit and the idea that it was Muslims or Islam in the Capitol day. And that's what they were. And even though they knew it was about kids, they were out there yelling at these kids. That's what these 20 to 30, maybe 100 protests are out there. It wasn't a huge protest, but it doesn't matter. The sheer factor was that it happened. One of the things, though, that I'll note that I think is a good story to that is it happened in 2015. This year as well, in 2017, just last week, they had the day again. And what they actually did is they had a call for local individuals to come out and make a human chain around where those students were going to be so that the protesters couldn't see them eye to eye. They got 4 deep on the chain for people that came out. So it's good to see that people are actually starting to speak up against this idea of intolerance that happens in certain areas. But at the same time, sometimes we take it too far when we don't realize that our ideas of trying to stop what we disagree with actually infringes and puts our intolerance on other individuals. So I think that's kind of something that we miss from time to time.
No, I would agree. People let their passions run away with them, or for this particular case at UC Berkeley with the 100 people in masks showing up randomly to the event, it could have just been premeditated that they wanted to make sure Yiannopoulos didn't have a chance to speak, in which case it's even worse. If it was people being passionate, then I can understand, but you can't let it get that far. You can't let it get so far that you become violent and you start to burn things. I'm like, why would you burn the generator and smash windows of somebody else's property? That's not going to help your cause at all. That's going to hurt your cause, because now you look ridiculous. You look so ridiculous when you do that. Anyway, folks, that's all we have for you today. Thank you very much for stopping by. Don't forget to hit that like or dislike button, depending on how you like the video. Also, hit that subscribe button and let us know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you very much.